Now, as I mentioned in my last video, the person at number 8 on the list of the 10 greatest composers ever is an American. And no, it is not Frank-Zappa, although he is certainly prolific enough, churning out album after album that, quite frankly, I couldn't be bothered to listen to. I mean, how can you give serious consideration to a guy who names his children Dweezil and Moon Unit, I ask you? I mean, you might as well go out and smoke a joint and hug trees, for heaven's sake. Actually, I have a confession to make. I do hug trees, and I also talk to them, but that is strictly between you and I. I'm so sorry. Now that I'm getting older, I do tend to ramble on a bit. But let me keep you in suspense no longer. The person at number 8 on the list of the greatest composers ever is, yes, America's own George Gershwin, who captured the very soul of modern America and modern urban life in works like An American in Paris and, most notably, the groundbreaking Rhapsody-in-Blue. Now, if anybody could be said to have defined the 20th century in musical terms, it was George Gershwin. For me, his was the voice of the 20th century. It was also a very inclusive voice, which drew on all aspects of life around him, from the sounds of New York and the jazz of New Orleans to the works of the great classical composers. Now, there was nothing intellectually snobbish or elitist about George Gershwin, unlike some of the darlings of the fashion police, who strove very self-consciously to be original at the cost of being listenable. Gershwin scores high on all the criteria I listed for ranking the greatest composers. Like all the truly great composers, he was a true and natural original, rather than somebody who strove consciously to achieve originality for its own sake. His work ranged from groundbreaking concert hall favorites to equally groundbreaking Broadway and movie classics, many of them with his lyricist brother Ira. In the depth and the range of his output, he was prolific, and he influenced every subsequent generation of composers, songwriters, and singers. I was surprised to find that one of his first major successes was the Al-Jolson classic Swanee, which I had always thought of as being an Irving Berlin song. Swanee, how I love you, how I love you. He went on to write many wonderful songs, some of which will be featured on a separate video entitled The Gershwin Sampler, His Greatest Hits. Is my woman now.
They're writing songs of love, but not for me.
No, no, they can't take that away from me.
I got rhythm, I got music.
But for me, Gershwin will always be most remembered for the concert hall classics like An American in Paris. And what about his groundbreaking opera Porgy-and-Bess, which is considered by many to be the greatest operatic work of the 20th century? Now, in my top 10, I have not included composers who were primarily tunesmiths for the musical stage or for popular songs. But Gershwin was so much more than that. He was also a very modest man who didn't really know how good he was. In his early days, he actually sought advice from people like Schonberg, who invented the 12-tone musical scale that gave academic musicologists something to pontificate about, and Maurice Ravel, he of Ravel's Bolero. You know, I cannot understand how or why Ravel's Bolero is touted by some people to be great music to make love by, unless you happen to like love-making that is grindingly monotonous and repetitive. But I guess maybe that's what some people like. Or maybe that's what some people settle for, perhaps. Anyway, to their credit, both Schonberg and Ravel recognized Gershwin's originality and urged him not to seek advice, but to follow his own path, which is exactly what he did. And the world is a better place for it. Gershwin certainly succeeded in producing lots of timeless compositions that have continued to appeal to succeeding generations. One of my favorite songs from all time is Someone to Watch Over Me.
Someone who watch over me.
I'm also putting together another video stringing together 12 different singers performing that song. Those 12 singers range from Frank Sinatra and Perry Como to Amy-Winehouse and Sting. Sting always seems to get into the act, doesn't he? That's when he isn't busy saving the planet. Tragically, a golf ball, of all things, put an end to Gershwin's life and his music at the relatively young age of 38. Apparently, the golf ball hit him on the head and caused a brain tumor that wasn't picked up at first, and which eventually killed him. One can only speculate on what he might have gone on to achieve had he been able to live a little longer. Anyway, in my next video I will be naming names, namely the name of the person in 7th place on the list of the 10 greatest composers ever. In the meantime, here's some more background information on George Gershwin, along with some symphonic music inspired by Gershwin.